The government is determined to get the Chibok girls out of captivity, and it's exploring a proposed swap deal by Boko Haram insurgents who have carried out attacks in northeast of Nigeria for almost a decade now. In the heart of the expected negotiations and eventual swap is a prominent figure, Aisha Wakil, who has tried to get the government to sit with leaders of the sect. Is the government able to identify the true leaders of the sect to come and swap talks? What if the deal scales through? What will it mean for the government's war on terror? Will the war on terror be over with the return of the Chibok girls? Data feeds coming through in one place simultaneously on all our social media platforms. We'll focus on the biggest stories. channelstv.com, youtube.com/channelsweb. Be part of the show. Tweet at Gimba Umar CTV. Use the hashtag State of the Nation to air your thoughts. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has commended the Chief Executive Officer of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, for sharing his wealth of knowledge with Nigerian youths and inspiring a new generation of entrepreneurs. Meeting with Mr. Zuckerberg at the presidential villa in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, President Buhari said that the various meetings the Facebook founder held with Nigerian youth since his arrival were most timely, saying the country is already exploring opportunities to spur development through entrepreneurship. Nigeria has always been identified as a country with great potentials, the president says, for growth, especially with its youthful population. Can the country move beyond the potentials, though, to reality? It's prime time in Lagos, and this is State of the Nation. Welcome everyone in Nigeria and the rest of the world. I am Gimba Umar and this is State of the Nation. We begin with the latest on the economy, which is pretty much in a bad shape. Inflation is at 17.1% as we speak. Commodity prices are at an all-time high. The Naira exchange rate is as high as 100. That will be 410 Naira to a dollar. The GDP figures for quarter two just released, a negative 2.06%, confirms Nigeria is indeed in recession. Let's get an insight on how to fix this. Galtima Liman, the former presidential aspirant in the 2007 presidential elections, joins me for a holistic view at the many sides of the economy. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on State of the Nation at this time. You have been following very keenly and seeing what the economy is today as to this time where we are today from the previous administration to now, of course. How would you describe the state of affairs in Nigeria today?
Well, it goes without saying that it's the economy, like you rightly seen on the screen, it's in a very dire strait, and so as a consequence of the floating exchange rate that, as you rightly mentioned, caused a very strong impact on the foreign exchange, reserve of the country and all that kind of thing. So Nigerians are going through excruciating times, and there ought to be a real new deal that will address these situations almost immediately, as we're speaking about it now.
If you're talking about new deals that will have to address the immediate on the short term, of course, to try to fix the wrongs that Nigerians are facing at the moment, what specifics would you recommend at this time?
Well, every nation has what you call a comparative advantage, which you convert to a competitive advantage and to get a front-loaded fund influx in the first place, because it's one of the key elements of getting your programs on ground, implementing your programs on ground, is the quality of leadership. Luckily, we have a very robust, transparent leadership that the world has acclaimed in the person of the president and the APC administration. People are saying they're anti-corrupt, they're transparent and all that. So the leadership element is being dealt with successfully in that respect. The second issue that you have a problem is the infrastructure. And then the most important, which is now affecting the country, is the fund influx. And the only way you can deal with the fund influx is for you to see that every other nation has some advantage over another, and that's what is called comparative advantage. Whether or not we like it, the comparative advantage Nigeria has, it's for now in the oil and gas sector. If you know how to handle that oil and gas sector, today I can assure you, you have investors. If there is real sanctity of contract, if there is peace and quiet in the Niger Delta, today I can assure you that there are investors that are ready to front load close to $100 billion annually to the national economy. And this is the kind of magnitude of funds that you need to turn around the national economy.
Now you talked about sticking with oil and gas as Nigeria's
absolutely important,
strength.
yes.
So perhaps the diversification
a lot of people
was not well advised.
A lot of people fail.
Would you say it was well advised for Nigeria to diversify?
Diversify from where? When you have a cash cow that can produce close to about 1,000 products that you can sell, you can use in bringing down the cost of energy, aviation fuel, kerosene, petrol, pharmaceuticals, name it. If you if you invest seriously in the downstream sector, you have your refineries up and going within a year. Immediately the cost of energy can come down. Why you have a high inflation is because of the fact that the cost of fuel is very high. So it's when you now optimize, you do what they call forward integration, backward integration. You now go into the upstream sector, the downstream, you can market. You can imagine countries like Kuwait have filling stations in the international market where they can dispense refined petroleum products. But Nigeria, we are relying on crude petroleum, and then you're selling it at $43 per barrel, and you're buying products from that same commodity within the range of $500 per barrel of refined products. So how are you going to come out of this economic comatose? You can't do that. The only way you can do is when you optimize that, you're able to generate real big funds. You now employ it for poverty alleviation, crush down the cost of food, make sure that cost of transportation is crushed down immediately, make sure that also the cost of energy comes down. And this you can do within the shortest period of time. But it depends on the peace and quiet that can cascade from the Niger Delta by community involvement. So that you can now also have gas being used as feedstock to the power stations. Most of the complaints that you see from the power stations is the fact that they can't get this feedstock because the community is aggrieved, they are bombing the pipelines, they're causing a lot of problems. So there is, in addition to the economic factor, there is the need for you to have the political finesse to sit down with this community to see that you can address this issue once and for all.
Looking at the state of the country at this moment, we are deeply in a recession. The figure is a negative 2.06 in the second quarter of this year. Moving ahead, do you suppose that with what you've said now, looking at the comparative advantage, modalities that you've put forward, looking at that now, would you say that Nigeria can get out of this recession
Nigeria is
using what we have in the shortest possible time?
Very, very possible. Nigeria is a very robust economy. The potentials are very, very high. We've not been able to bring out the best in the country because the infrastructure, the utilities, they're creating a lot of problems for private sector investors and also the insecurity level. Nobody is going to bring in his investment in the cash cow, which is the oil and gas area. As long as you have these Niger Delta Avengers, you have all these crises within that area. And those crises within that area requires real, integration, a community feeling, a participatory kind of activities, not military intervention alone. Because there are no doubt criminal elements that have been enjoying a lot of good time with the oil and gas sector. That's a different thing altogether. But overall, there had been a lack of critical investment in community development, in the community, providing the geese laying the golden egg. So you protect that. You try to generate huge amount of money from that. And knowing that you have an administration that is anti-corruption without these leakages, you can now then go into short-term immediate palliatives, particularly reducing the cost of food, making sure that also industrial, this massive youth unemployment is taken care of in terms of diversifying now. You can go into the agri sector where you can now have 60% of the employment. You can now also go into cottage industry, labor-intensive infrastructure, utility renewal programs, so that every young man has something at the end of the day to carry home. And that is going to provide liquidity for you in the economy. And once there is liquidity, the businesses grow, and then you have multiplier effect, and you can come out of recession. This has been done during the Great Depression by Roosevelt. You remember in the United States when he came out within 100 days, and that's how the 100 days program came about.
You know what?
Yes.
When we come back after this break, I'll be asking you a very direct question about Mr. President's economic team and what you suppose that they would have done when they came into office in 2015. You're watching State of the Nation. We'll be back in just a moment. Join us again.